What if you're already doing better financially than you think, but you don't realize it yet? Many people assume you feel rich the moment you hit a certain number. They imagine a big change, a lifestyle shift, or some obvious moment where everything clicks. But that's not how it works for most people. Real financial progress is slow, steady, and often silent. You don't wake up and suddenly feel successful. You just notice little things getting easier. So today, we're going to go through the clear signs that you've made it further financially than you think, even if it doesn't feel like it yet. Bills, for example, stop feeling like mini-crisis. They still arrive like clockwork. Rent or mortgage, utilities, insurance, all the recurring obligations that used to dictate emotional stability. But opening them no longer comes with a sinking feeling. The stomach doesn't drop. Midnight no longer involves refreshing the bank balance waiting for a deposit to land before autopay does its thing. The old decision-making game of choosing which bill to postpone fades into memory. Payments simply get handled. It isn't glamorous, but it is a milestone. For a huge portion of people, bill day is still panic day. When it ceases to be a monthly emergency, that's a level of progress rarely celebrated but deeply significant. It means stability has quietly taken root, even if the mind hasn't caught up to the reality yet. Another hidden indicator appears when life throws its typical curveballs. A car light suddenly flicks on. The pet needs medical attention. A surprise healthcare bill drops into the mailbox. Situations that once represented months of financial fallout. These used to mean credit cards, payment plans, uncomfortable phone calls, or leaning on family. Now those same disruptions shrink into manageable problems. Money is moved from the emergency fund. Maybe it's 3 months of expenses, maybe 6, maybe just 1. But the important part is that it exists and works. The crisis remains only the size of the actual issue, not the size of the bank account. That shift from "this will haunt me" to "this is annoying but fixable" is one of the clearest markers that survival mode has been replaced with something steadier. The cycle of accumulating new debt to survive also starts to break. Old debts might still linger: student loans, a car payment, a mortgage. But the pattern of relying on credit to cover an ordinary month loses its grip. Groceries, gas, social outings, basic needs. They're funded by actual income instead of borrowed future income. The monthly credit card balance stops creeping upward. This change is subtle, easy to overlook, and rarely feels like a victory while it's happening. Yet escaping the paycheck-to-paycheck debt spiral is one of the toughest financial battles most people ever face. Reaching even the early stages of the other side counts as real progress, whether it feels like it or not. By the end of each month, a small surplus begins to appear. Maybe it's just a few dollars. Maybe it's a couple hundred. The size doesn't matter nearly as much as the existence. That tiny gap between income and spending, what most people never consistently achieve, is the seed of every fortune, the foundation of every investment, the beginning of every future opportunity. Wealth doesn't begin with 6 figures in the bank. It begins with the first consistent sliver of positive cash flow. A little breathing room signals that momentum has quietly shifted directions. Saving also transforms from a heroic effort into something automatic. In the early years, saving requires luck. Everything has to line up perfectly. No emergencies, no unexpected costs, no temptations. But at a certain point, saving becomes a system instead of a battle. Money moves automatically. Payroll deductions, scheduled transfers, contributions that happen with or without motivation. The amount might still feel small, but the habit is no longer negotiable. This quiet consistency matters far more than irregular bursts of big saving. Most millionaires are not people who made one bold sacrifice. They're people who did a small, boring thing repeatedly for decades. When saving stops depending on willpower, the future begins building itself. Investment accounts start reflecting this shift too. Balances inch upward not just because of contributions, but because the market is doing some of the lifting in the background. Seeing an extra $70 or $140 that came from gains rather than deposits can feel underwhelming, even meaningless at first. But it represents the moment where wealth creation transitions from trading hours for dollars to allowing dollars to earn more dollars. It's the quiet beginning of passive growth, the part many people never reach because they never stay consistent long enough to see it. Unexpected expenses lose their power to terrify. They still sting. No one enjoys dropping $200 on a vet bill or replacing a furnace in the dead of winter, but they no longer feel catastrophic. They cause irritation, not panic. Some money gets moved around. Maybe a minor want gets delayed, but the recovery takes weeks, not years. Financial resilience doesn't feel glamorous. It feels ordinary. But that ordinary feeling is the point. The very existence of resilience is wealth in one of its most practical, least flashy forms. Long-term goals begin shifting from fantasy to scheduled. Buying a home, switching careers, taking a break, starting a business, planning early retirement. Things that once lived in the realm of imagination now have actual timelines. An estimated date appears in a spreadsheet. The plan becomes mathematical instead of magical. It's no longer maybe someday. It's 2029 if nothing changes, 2027 with a push. That transformation, from wishful thinking to structured possibility, is a sign that a real financial foundation has been laid, even if the larger milestones still seem far away. Time begins loosening its chains as well. Life is no longer entirely controlled by money. A sick day can be taken without dread. A draining extra shift can be turned down without fear. There's room to be generous with time. Helping someone move, running an errand for a friend, taking a slow morning, because missing a few hours of income won't cause a meltdown. That flexibility feels mundane when it finally arrives, but it's actually a profound shift. One of the earliest forms of freedom money buys. Net worth begins inching in the right direction too. Forget the absolute number. What matters is the trend. Assets grow while debts shrink, even if slowly. The gap widens. Long, quiet upward trends have more impact over a decade than people realize. They're the slow burn engine behind almost every story of eventual wealth. The difficult part is recognizing any of these signs for what they are, because none of them feel dramatic. There are no fireworks, no big cinematic moments announcing a new chapter. Prices are still checked at the grocery store. Lights are still switched off to save a bit on the electric bill. Guilt still shows up when buying the nicer coffee beans. And that's the trick. Financial maturity rarely looks like the stereotype. It doesn't arrive with a new car or a designer wardrobe. It reveals itself in the absence of fear, in the quiet, steady confidence that tomorrow won't be worse than today. Thoughts around money don't disappear. They simply change tone. The inner monologue drifts away from, "How am I going to survive this month?" and shifts toward, "How do I keep this working for the next 30 years?" That's progress, real progress. If most of the signs described here feel familiar, then the early chapters of what most people call wealth have already begun. The symbols may not be there yet. The vacation home, the 7-figure account balance, the ability to retire tomorrow. But the substance is well underway. The symbols come later if the same steady habits continue. Symbols come later if the same steady habits continue. The game from here isn't flashy. It's the same simple formula that has always worked. Maintain the surplus, invest it consistently, keep lifestyle creep from swallowing it, protect the emergency fund, and let time do the heavy lifting. There's no waiting to become rich. The process is already in motion. The only thing missing is the recognition of how far things have already come. A past version of yourself would look at your current life with disbelief. The stability, the calm, the options, the freedom from constant fear. These were the things that earlier self dreamed about on the hardest days. Those dreams didn't just vanish. They became real, quietly, gradually, without applause. Credit is deserved. Survival turned into progress, and progress into a foundation. The best part is that the trajectory continues upward, not because something dramatic is about to happen, but precisely because nothing dramatic needs to. The system is working. The habits are working. The path is unfolding exactly the way financial growth usually does. Slowly at first, then obviously in hindsight. Just keep going. The destination is closer than it feels. The progress is bigger than it appears, and in more ways than you've allowed yourself to admit. The journey toward wealth is already well underway.